I'm very happy to be here with you today, together with Chris Munch. Together, we're going to present various activities ongoing now in the OPC Foundation and also some motivation for these activities. Chris, would you like to give yourself an introduction?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was thinking I'd jump in later, but yeah, hello everyone. This is Chris Munch. I'm probably the only one from the west coast of the US. My clock just changed to the next day, so I'm officially out of Father's Day and ready to go. So Espen will start with the first set of slides and I could kick in a little bit later. So Espen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So my company Predictor was acquired by TGS a year ago. So now we call us TGS Predictor. TGS Predictor has a range of digital tools for the energy sector across the asset life cycle and across various energy sources, including wind and solar. We have pioneered the implementation of OPC UA with information models in the energy sector. Last year, I had the opportunity at this stage to talk about the energy transition and the urging need for data exchange standards within wind and solar domain. The number of large solar and wind energy plants is growing tremendously fast, and the availability of data exchange standards is essential to be able to scale this efficiently. Today, though, I'm going to talk about some of the challenges with the boom of renewables. The energy must not only be sustainable, it must also be reliable and affordable. In Europe, the last 2 years, we have seen that this cannot be taken for granted. So, the Energy Industry Council has a database tracking all new energy projects. Looking into this, we can see that about 1,200 utility-scale solar plants will be built the next year or so, and about 700 wind power plants will be built in the same period, and another 100 hydropower plants. So this is really good because this is sustainable energy sources, and we can see that these sustainable energy sources, they outnumber the non-sustainable ones with a factor of 10. There are some energy sources that are dispatchable. This means we can turn the energy productions on and off when we need the energy. Wind and solar, though, there's a non-dispatchable. We cannot turn the wind or the sun on and off when we like it, so we call these intermittent sources. So I'm going to talk about some of the challenges when you're connecting all of this, the intermittent sources, etc., to the grid. So the intermittency means the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow, and because of this, there is a challenge when we increase the percentage of intermittent energy sources on the grid. The balance of power production and power consumption is not always there. This can lead to both very low and very high energy prices, which is a challenge for power consumers, but also for producers, like we see in Australia, where energy is consistently negative on daytime. So in an energy market like this, it makes it very little interesting to invest in new solar plants, but we still need that. One of the solutions is, though, to combine the intermittent energy storage, intermittent energy sources with storage. We call this hybrid renewable energy system. And one such hybrid system is what you can see here. This is a big hydropower dam in the Philippines, and they've started to put out floating solar on this hydropower dam. There are many benefits of doing this. They can use existing space on the surface of the dam for the solar power. The solar cells are cooled and then become more efficient, and there's less evaporation from the dam because when they cover it with solar floating solar panels. In these assets, there's also a very big battery installation. So you can see them there, all the covers, they are stacked with batteries. And all of this, the hydropower, the solar power, and the battery storage is then used to control and have a good provision of energy to the grid. So let's look at some of the benefits of running such a hybrid power plant. The energy producer has a contract with the grid owner or the TSO on how he will deliver energy to the grid. In many regions around the world, there are fixed power purchase agreements where they typically need to provide a base load to the grid from the energy source. So let's say that the base load looks like this. It's a lot of production when people are working and up, and when they are asleep, there's less production. Most of this can then come from the hydropower dam, most of the energy source. But we can save some water when the sun is shining and retain the water in the storage on the dam. In order to provide the stable energy, though, according to the contract, we need to also care for the more frequent dynamics in this. So we add the battery energy system to cope with this. Now, all of this must run together in a hybrid power plant, and it must be controlled and optimized. And for real-time control and optimization, we also need to have real-time data exchange all across this. So conclusion is, the next decade, an enormous amount of new energy plants are going to be built. And we need data exchange standards to make this efficient, to be able to scale all of these plants. We also need data exchange standards to combine the technologies. And it's very good now that OPC Foundation has recently established a lot of working groups to ensure this will actually happen, that the standards will be published and can be used. Okay, Chris, I think you can run from here.
All right, thank you, Espen. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about what we did in the OPC Foundation in order to cover all these different and exciting new opportunities in the energy sector. As Espen said, there's a lot of challenges on the macro side in the large grids, but there are also interesting challenges on the microgrid side and the smaller environments that is passion for a lot of people in industrial environments that require energy, and energy is like everywhere. Can you advance one slide? So when we looked at the cycle of energy, we always have a production. We have these different areas of energy that play together, and a big cycle is that energy has to be produced, then will be transformed, then will be distributed somewhere where it's needed. It might be stored somewhere, and then of course at the end is the consumption. But if you go to the next slide, there are also shortcuts between those. So it's not always the full cycle. Sometimes you go from production to storage and consumption, or you go from production to transformation, then consumption. So you have all sorts of different communications necessary between the different areas. And these arrows basically also represent where OPC UA kicks in and then makes the connection between all these different areas possible. In the past, these different areas were very isolated. They were built as silos, and the communication between all of them was very, very minimal. OPC UA is trying to fix this by standardizing for once the communication inside those 5 areas, but additionally also the communication between those different energy markets. If you could go one more slide. So we started a series of working groups in the OPC Foundation over the last couple of months. Stefan had a preview of this slide up in his keynote slide deck, and as you can see, we already grew by 2 more since then. So the working groups are working on power consumption, carbon capturing, solar and PV, monitoring control wind power plants, and overarching the energy harmonization has just basically kicked off yesterday. So it's a brand new initiative. And the goal is to find ways to simplify the connectivity between and inside all these different areas of energy requirements, so the production, transformation, distribution, storage, and consumption. And you will probably see an area of your interest inside one of those areas or multiple of those areas. And there is also cross-overlapping efforts between those different areas that we need to handle. For example, there's always a transformation aspect when it comes to solar. You go from DC to AC. That's basically a form of transformation, and then you distribute that inside your facility, if that's an industrial facility, a macrogrid or microgrid. And most likely there's also some form of battery storage involved. So if you can go to the next slide, we try to write some use cases down that are important for these areas, right? From a point of view of a microgrid operator, the point of view of a big grid operator, an energy provider, a distributor, energy storage facility operator, and in the end of a consumer. There are many more use cases that we will discuss in the harmonization group, that we make sure that all the different energy groups will be represented properly and show their commitment to the OPC UA efforts in the energy space. You can go one more slides. As you can see, we have already some groups in works. These are all the yellow groups that are already started. Solar and PV in the energy production, wind, oil and gas is already in progress. The inverters will be kind of handled by the solar and PV group. There's a battery initiative, but there's also some overlap with the inverters and the solar PV group. And then we have the power consumption group for industrial machines, which is a huge group organized by the VDMA that will handle also Profi energy and all sorts of other initiatives in the industrial space for the power consumption of all that. And the harmonization group is on the bottom, basically providing the base units and core definitions that all the groups that are sitting on top will hopefully use and apply to the groups, that we don't invent what power is, what energy is, what are the units for that, what's a phase. All this should be kind of defined in the harmonization group. And there's a very popular and strong standard, the IEC 61850, that has done a lot of these specifications in the IEC group already, that we're trying to bring in and harmonize with the existing OPC UI DI groups and possibly other IEC standards that will be necessary in order to bring all of these different energy topics on a common layer. As mentioned in the keynote by Stefan, Wolfgang Manke is helping us to harmonize this, and we just basically founded the harmonization working group under the general OPC Foundation harmonization group in order to bring all these different working groups together and possibly start the remaining ones. I'm very active in and working for a electrolyzer company, Enapter. Enapter is one of the companies who transforms energy into hydrogen. And hydrogen will play a major role in the energy market of the future. It's a very strong component of the industrial, the Inflation Reduction Act. No, industrial would be funny. It's the Inflation Reduction Act here in the US, and also the initiatives in Europe, where we have different hydrogen corridors being built, and that might be a very big part of the energy landscape in the future. And I think if you go to the next slide, that's something Espen. Oh no, yeah. Deep dive into the different working groups that we already started. As I mentioned, power consumption, that's kind of the group that is running for the longest. It started by the VDMA and tries to bring all these different energy models and information systems like Profi Energy into an OPC UA model for the industrial consumption, for factories and product lines. This is kind of the closest one to the industry in the process industry or in the industrial automation industry, and will of course map into the proper areas of the energy models. Next slide, please. The OPC UA for carbon capturing and storage is driven by Microsoft. So Eric Barnstedt is the chairman behind this group. And as you can see, Predictor, Equinor, and Beckhoff are other participants in this working group, which should define the communication to carbon capture equipment, compression equipment, and of course, all the other equipment that's required to do carbon capture processing, including also metering and reporting. So I'm very excited about this working group, specifically on the reporting part, because there are two different types of carbon footprint that we have. There's one carbon footprint for every equipment that's been built, that's the manufacturing carbon footprint, and then there's production carbon footprint that a machine will possibly have if it has a diesel tank or something else. So both of these carbon values have to be reported to be give you an accurate description of your carbon footprint at the end. So we hope that this group will define the standards, how this reporting will happen, and then also, of course, how this equipment and all these meters can talk to each other. Next slide, please. The SPOM group is the Solar and Photovoltaic Operations and Maintenance group. This is the group I'm chairing. The idea behind this group is to come up with an interactive standard to connect solar panels and PV to their management systems, plug them together with inverters, with batteries, with backup interfaces, generators for emergency systems. We haven't exactly specified the scope yet, but it's kind of encompassing quite a lot of instrumentations and machines that could talk together here. So this working group has started working in March 23, and one of the first recognitions we made in this group is that we really need to have the harmonization group give us guidelines on the use of the basic values and units and device descriptions that we need to use, and then we can start working on a solid set for photovoltaic operations and maintenance. As I said, the group has started in March 23. We meet every 2 weeks, and we hope that you're interested in that and possibly join the group. Next slide.
Yes.
Espen, you.
So the next group is monitoring control of wind power plants. So this is a joint working group with OPC Foundation and the IEC 61400-25 user group. The contract was recently signed now in early June, so this is good. So the IEC 61400-25 user group has been working on a mapping OPC UA for some time from the IEC specification called exactly IEC 61400-25. In parallel, because of the lack of available standards in the segment, Equinor and Predictor has also been developing a mapping on this specific 61400-25 standard and realized it in full-scale offshore wind farms. So the background work, both from the user group and from the work on Equinor Predictor, will go into the group to be potentially used, and the ambition is to have a working draft within year end. So, but we haven't really started yet. The kickoff is scheduled now for July 3rd, 4 p.m. CET, and there is a call for experts to participate. So anybody that have expertise and interest in seeing that the company specification of wind really happens, please take contact. Also, like you mentioned, Chris, the Energy Harmonization Work Group has been founded as a subgroup of the Harmonization Work Group. The goal of this group is to ensure common definitions and constructs are used across the various energy working groups. And we will try to leverage on earlier work on energy semantics like we find in the IEC 61850 standard. The call for experts was sent yesterday, kickoff scheduled for August 1st, 3 p.m. And in this group, we have the idea that there will be a basic OPC for energy with common definitions, and then we will have the other energy standards deriving from that one. And we will find semantics and etc. with the work already done in a lot of IEC committees within energy and try to leverage on this. Okay, I guess that was it.
Yeah, thank you very much for listening and have a great week.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.